What is the perfect adventure bike? After 40 years of adventure bikes, countless cycles, redesigns, iconic bikes, and bikes that are throwing back to the icons, it seems an impossible task to answer. Everyone has different requirements, things we need and want, but there are some things we can all agree on. If we look down the list of adventure bikes, the list gets narrower with each new criteria. It narrows to 2 or maybe 3 bikes, and each bike has a compromise. The suspension is mediocre, the tech is woeful, or it's too tall or too heavy. But what if there existed a bike that was all of these things? Literally every single one. What if that bike was just 189 kilograms, 80 horsepower, and had 240 millimeters of exceptional suspension, a reasonable seat height, a beautiful TFT screen, tubeless wheels, and was just 10,600 pounds? You are in for a shock. If you are anything like most people, the Aprilia Tuareg 660 will have passed you by. You see, to me, it kind of went in a box of being this quirky T7 lookalike. Maybe the engine seemed too small, maybe it's because it's an Aprilia. I even read a few good reviews and the same thing happened. When Ducati made a middleweight adventure, the whole world, including me, melted down. They made a superb bike, we clapped them on the back, and Yamaha got the same treatment too. The T7 is great, and they've sold 1.4 bajillion of them, but Aprilia have had it completely differently. The brand as a whole have a reputation that is hard to shake, even as a journalist. Quirky, Italian, and possibly unreliable. But I'm not sure that badge deserves to hang around anymore. I think we're in a new age. The Tuareg 660 is special, and it is a bike that can only be made by a brand who are able to make the bike as intended without capitulating to compromise. There is a reason that this bike is in the same price bracket as a Transalp, a KTM 790 Adventure, and a Tenere 700 Standard, but outstrips or matches them across the board. Now that you're hooked, I need to address a few things. As always, this is a press bike, and I am allowed to do and say what I want with it. I always try to have a fair setup with our test bikes. What that fully looks like is in this Mini Tip Monday. Most importantly, I measured and set the sag. I swapped the Scorpion STR tyres out for more off-road 50/50 style Dunlop Trailmax raids, so we didn't hamper the off-road riding unfairly. I also went ahead and toughened the Tuareg up a little bit. The stock protection is fine for road and light gravel, but it's thin pressed aluminium, so I used crash protection from our sponsor CrossPro, but I'll come to that later. The Tuareg also has a really nice 12mm bar for GPS mounting above the TFT screen, so that's where I popped the GPS. Let's get back to saying profound things about motorcycles. Paradigm shifts are a painful thing. It's human nature to resist change. If we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it for ourselves, it cannot be. See Flat Earthers for reference. Our innate fear of the new and hesitancy of change leads to judgment, and there are many things you can judge a motorcycle for. You can judge it for how superbly it handles on the road, holding itself up well under braking despite its long travel front suspension. You could judge it for the balanced, nimble, and smooth rolling into corners aided by the Dunlop Trailmax Raid's effortless road manners that feels distinctly Desert X-esque if the Desert X had firmer suspension, weighed less, and had a lower center of gravity. I think I'm definitely judging it for how well it handles when I add weight to the bag. A 10 kilo camera bag? Check. A 10 kilo lunch bag? Check. Maybe we can cast judgment in just how effective a small 660cc motor can be, being delightfully well fueled, punching hard from its mid-range, and cruising effortlessly at motorway speeds in a manner most other small bikes can only dream of. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to judge the Aprilia solely on the merits of how it rides. Maybe this is a change we need to see with our own eyes and feel with our own butts. After all, this is a company on the rise, taking 1-2s in MotoGP and producing bikes with an ever-increasing reliability record. And the Tuareg, well, it's holding together pretty well. To help hold it together even better, I fitted a crash bar and sump guard protection combo from the sponsor of this video, CrossPro. CrossPro have a different approach to most adventure bike protection companies. They are an off-road company through and through, born from making enduro protection parts for Portuguese enduro and Dakar racers. They have dozens of Dakar rally finishes and a deep knowledge of working with aluminium to make quality protection parts. By making their protection from 3mm thick, 25mm diameter aluminium tubing, CrossPro are keeping the weight of their crash bars down, but the protection's still high. The neat, easy-to-fit design also comes with some lovely extras, such as crash bar sliders and a very nice HDPE slider system built into the sump guard to stop the bottom of the bike catching on the ground if you bottom out. If you're looking to keep the weight down on your lightweight adventure bike, then check out CrossPro aluminium protection. When perception shifts and something new and exciting is found, the human brain goes into overdrive. Dopamine is dumped, enthusiasm goes through the roof, and you become that annoying friend in the pub that can't stop talking about CrossFit. I am an expert in being that person. I think I'm currently that guy right now. Because the Aprilia Tuareg 660 has shifted my paradigm of what a twin-cylinder adventure bike can be, no, what it should be. It has moved the benchmark in both riding performance, execution, and value. While the Tuareg is a superb standalone street bike with road handling that lets you attack the road with confidence and suspension that belies the lengthy travel, it's not necessarily alone in this regard. In 2023, there are lots of brands doing this well. See the KTM 890 platform, the Honda Transalp, or Ducati's Desert X. The engine is a genuine peach. It is fantastic, but it is the one thing about this bike that I think won't be for everyone. It rides kind of like a better fueled, smoother version of a Tenere 700/Transalp hybrid. It was good. Leftovers are good. It doesn't have the outright torquey punch that slightly bigger motors like the KTM 890 offer, and while it'll cruise in any gear, if you want rapid forward motion, you need the engine to creep over 5,000 RPM. Get there and it is a rocket ship. It is a relatively small bike. It doesn't have a gallon of wind protection, but what it does have works very well. The screen is nice, you can get in the bubble, but it is not an R1250 GS Adventure. On a personal level, I like how it rides on the road a lot. I think it's great. But that is not what I'm in the pub trying to sell you this bike on. It's how it performs off-road that takes this bike to adventure bike royalty. When the wheels touch the dirt and you hit the very first square-edged bump, a light bulb will go off. You will see the light. You will be joining the Church of Tuareg. That light is suspension that truly works without spending thousands of pounds extra on your bike. The forks are firm but sensitive. They take hard hits like a well set up dirt bike and better than my £15,000 T7 project bike did. It flies fatter than a 747 on takeoff, and the linkage ratio on the shock means the hardest of hits ramp up to feeling like a cloud. It's so good that I've started looking for flat landings, jumping things I would normally wheelie or soak, just to feel that suspension being supportive like a wholesome middle-class family from American TV. This trail is a trail that I know well. I've ridden it on nearly every adventure bike I've tested in the last 2 years, and the Aprilia handled its massive 4x4 bumps better than any bike I've ridden yet. The real kicker here, the real feather in the cap, you can make it what you want. It's firm from stock. Enduro bike, little bit of feedback kind of firm, but if that's not your thing, wind the compression out a bit more and find a more supple setting. Game changing. After our initial excitement comes a more depth of understanding. The granular details set in, the nuance. On a side note, I got a puncture from being too excited and riding too fast. It was a big one, a triple plugger. Everything about the Tuareg kind of feels like Aprilia have just trodden their own path. The suspension is great, it really is, but it mostly just feels like it's a foundation for the rest of the bike. The chassis has great feel. The bike grips the ground so well and is superbly precise,
Ruts are easy to hit without missing a beat, the center of gravity feels low, and the lack of oscillation in the suspension means that slow riding is easy. The ergonomics are so good on this bike as well. The long bench seat is thin between the legs, but soft enough and wide enough to be comfortable over hours and hours of riding. That thinness makes it feel smaller and lower to the ground than the spec sheet suggests, and as I'm writing this script, I can feel myself getting excited again. And the engine, oh my gosh. The power delivery from nothing on the throttle is perfectly smooth. Yamaha, you should take note. If you need the front wheel off the ground, that happens as easily as any ADV I've ever ridden, but it's controlled. Carrying it over long puddles is so easy. And when the trail opens up, a little rally mode beast can be found inside. Wind the throttle on and it feels like I'm back in South America ripping open desert and reliving that Dakar feeling. The Tuareg has two special skills that are unlocked when you put all of these pieces together. It lets you cover ground incredibly efficiently without worry, and it does it with a level of safety I think the KTM 890 Adventure R and the Norden 901 Expedition are the only adventure bikes that have a chance of understanding.
At the end of a process of change, we find ourselves with a new benchmark, a new understanding of what is possible and what should be expected. When we first sent people into space, we had no idea what was up there, what would happen. And a few years later, we put people on the moon.
In every aspect of motorcycles, there is a bike that benchmarks something. They always do something better than the competition, and the Aprilia is now sat with the KTM at the top of the off-road performance tree. But
a lot of this ride experience can easily be undone by something irritating, a little niggle, a problem, something that needs fixing, or would probably be enough to put you off buying that bike. Lots of bikes have been guilty of this in the past, but this Tuareg, well, honestly, I can't find that thing. It just isn't there.
the TFT is beautiful, well designed, simple and effortless to use. Mode changes are on a dedicated button, preference changes are remembered when you turn the bike off, and traction control can be altered live and in play. There is no awkward buffering, no irritating vibration in the handlebars. It does get warm around the engine, but certainly not as warm as a Norden 901 and not enough to be genuinely problematic in my opinion. It's got cruise control, an optional quickshifter, cross-spoke tubeless wheels, and is doing all of this for less than the price of a T7 Rally Edition. The value is superb. Now if you do a quick Google, the Tuareg is sat in some showrooms for the same price as a base model Transalp, and it is hands down the best off-road focused adventure bike for your money spent. Even the long-standing patchy reliability history of Aprilia's, anecdotally at least, seems to be fading away. There are dozens of reports of long rides on this Tuareg without problems. This isn't a bike that should be sitting in showrooms. This is the kind of bike that adventure riders dream of. It's the kind of bike we should all be buying by the dozen, and it's sad that shops are having to discount them to get them off the showroom floor. We're even going to make some graphics kits for it, so if you buy one, it can look cool, because I know if I was buying one right now for the adventure riding I use an adventure bike for, it'd be a Tuareg.